The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller along with Otto Lohse. Otto is the co-host for Project Independence and You. Good morning and welcome, Otto.
Good morning, Rebecca. Always a pleasure.
It certainly is. And of course, we have Kristina Lew, who is the radio show producer and also the director for Senior Citizen Affairs for the town's Project Independence. And Kristina, of course, pulls these shows together every week, going into our 11th year. Wait, is it our 11th year? 12th? No. Yeah, 12th year. Okay, I can't believe it. But of course, we have a great guest today, also a partner with Project Independence and You. And our guest is Karen Blackburn, and Karen is the public affairs specialist with AAA in the Northeast. So first, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. Perfect topic, winter driving safety. And for so many reasons, we've had some unprecedented weather this season already. I recently drove up to my son's recital in November when Buffalo had that first storm. I was driving through the Adirondacks, and that part of New York really didn't have the same weather, even though it's even a little bit more north where I was going. However, I experienced something, and I went to college also way upstate, Brockport. I never experienced, I had a car full of people going to see my son's recital. We were in the mountains, and there was a squall. So the wind was blowing the snow all around, very, very little visibility, nowhere to go, couldn't stop. Luckily, I have a really good car, and I was using Waze, and Waze has you on the road in real time. I really needed that because I literally could not see when the roads were turning. It was very scary. And, that's the kind of thing that you really can't plan, those squalls, because it's just, I guess it's the wind blowing the snow off the trees. I was very thankful that I had Waze and I was able to use it. We were going very slow. It took about a good half an hour to get to a place where driving wasn't so scary. But, I was gripping the steering wheel so much. So, like being a New York person my entire life, being upstate a lot, and I never experienced anything like that in my life. So, and I know that we're going to be talking a lot about what happened in Buffalo and all that stuff. So I just wanted to share that with you because I never experienced that. And it was really frightening not being able to see anything except a little bit in front of your headlights. And that's it. Anyway, so again, welcome. I guess a good place to start would be talking about, what should we have in our cars? How do we prepare? And when is it not even worth it to prepare and just stay home?
All right. On that cue, I'm going to
You're on.
All right. I have a PowerPoint for anybody who's visually watching. And for those who are not, I will definitely cover everything that's right on in here. So everybody can see who's looking. Yes. All right.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. All right. So we're talking about the first thing that I check every year is our Farmer's Almanac. So last year it said we were going to have a wild, crazy mix.
Yeah.
This year's Farmer's Almanac said, this is a quote, "Plenty of snow, rain, and mush." I'm like, all right. They also predicted that we're having record-breaking cold temperatures. And we already saw that. We had a very cold blast in December. The Farmer's Almanac is actually predicting a very cold blast next week. And Farmer's Almanac is fairly accurate. They can't be 100% accurate, but their verbiage was get ready to shake, shiver, and shovel.
Ooh.
But now, even if it turns out to be a mild winter, and so far we haven't had any, knock on wood, we haven't had any snow to speak of. We have had those cold blasts, and that will have an effect on your vehicle. No matter what, we want to be prepared for surviving winter driving. We live on Long Island. We know from last winter and from previous winters, we could get hit with anything. I don't believe we're ever going to get hit with something like Buffalo got hit with, but we want to be prepared. And again, the Farmer's Almanac has a map of the country that, again, in the entire Northeast, right where we are, significant shivers, slushy, icy, snowy. So today, the things we're going to cover is some pre-storm vehicle for preparation for your vehicle. We're going to talk about safe tips for driving and maneuvering on ice and snow, because sometimes, you know what, maybe you're at work, maybe you're someplace, and just like what happened to Rebecca, that she got caught, in something, we want to know, well, what are we going to do with that? All right, a little joke that I have, some safe tips for driving in the snow. Number one, we want to install some winter tires. Number two, we want to drive south. Number three, we're going to continue until you see palm trees. And the last one is that then we're just going to chill and relax. Apply your brakes and stop right in the south where
Karen,
they're not having any snow. However, I believe that Florida is getting some cold weather right now.
Yeah, I have a question about the winter tire thing. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Otto. Yep.
I was in the era where people might put chains on their tires. You had to change your tires and put winter tires on. Is that still the case, or are the tires?
You know what? I'm going to get to all of those things that go, and tires are a huge thing. We don't necessarily recommend chains on tires here, because we don't have consistent snow on the road and not easy to put on and off. We are going to talk a little bit about winter tires. They're very expensive. If you can afford two, get two. If you can afford a set of four, they're very costly. If you can get them, we wouldn't ever tell somebody don't get them. They definitely are, a good thing. All right, but I'm going to cover 7 areas for your car that are definitely things that we have. But first and foremost, the thing that I'm going to repeat a number of times during this program, if you can, just stay home. Listen to the forecast. They are all over the place on the news, on TV, News 12, constant updates. If they're predicting something, then just stay home if you can. All right, but if you have to go out, we need to plan ahead. We're going to listen to the forecasts. Sometimes you hear like, oh, well, they said they were going to get all this big snow and nothing happened. Well, you know what? I would rather be prepared and be ready. And if it was, if nothing happened, then okay, no big deal. But it's better to plan for the worst and hope for the best. All right. So now here we go. We're going to start talking about your car, the 7 sensitive parts in your car. Then you don't need to be a mechanic to understand this part. I'm not a mechanic, and I don't claim to be. Some of the things that are in here are not things necessarily that I have checked, but I've asked my mechanic to check. But the first one, Otto, just like you were asking, is our tires. And the easy thing that we need to remember is that most tires lose 1 pound of pressure for every 10-degree drop in the temperature outside. And they lose about 1 pound a month. Now, we know that when you open up your car door, there's a little sticker on there that says what should be the proper tire pressure for your car. And many cars now have tire pressure monitoring systems. A light will come up that says, hey, your tire pressure is low. It looks like a little flat tire. Many cars will tell you which tire it is. Some cars will tell you what's the tire pressure at. But I'm going to strongly recommend that you still get a little portable gauge. Not all cars have those things, and usually when the monitoring system goes off, your tire pressure is already 25% too low, and that's significant. So I might recommend get a portable compressor, keep it in the back. You might want to get 4 dedicated winter tires. That is an optimal situation, but again, they're costly. If you can only get 2, get 2 and then switch it out. All right. And again, the tire pressure gauge is very simple to use. And again, I never used one before. I worked for AAA, and I'm like, oh, This really is pretty easy. In our Car Fit program, which is a program that we frequently do with Project Independence, we give everybody a tire pressure gauge and we show you how to do that. And there is a little sticker, again, right inside the door jamb. If your car doesn't have that sticker, it's definitely in your owner's manual. And we want to make sure that the tire is properly inflated and that your 4 treads going across are worn evenly. If you notice that there is a bald spot down the center of your tire, then your tires are overinflated. But if you also notice that around the rims of the tire, if it looks like it's worn differently, then there's a good chance that your tires are underinflated. And both of those situations can make it difficult for your tire to grip the road. And when you think about as you're driving, your tires are what make contact with the ground. We want to make sure, and again, if the ground is at all slippery, wet, icy, it's really important that all 4 grooves, which wick the water away, that all 4 grooves are working the way that they should. You can stick a quarter into one of those treads, actually in all 4. And what we like to say is head in the tread. George Washington's head. Years ago, we used to use a penny. People are like, oh, is that inflation that you moved it to a quarter? No, we want a deeper tread that will, again, wick the water away and help your tire function better. All right, the next area, and Otto, to answer your question, we don't necessarily recommend chains on the car because, again, once you get to that point where the road is clear, and on Long Island, for the most part, the clearage is pretty good. Not right after a storm, not during the storm, when the plows are out there, but usually within a day, the roads are pretty clear. So you'd end up having to take those chains off again. So the winter tire is a good idea. If you don't have them, again, you're going to follow along with some of the other tips that we're going to share today. Second area that we're looking at is your battery. So here's the one thing I want to tell you, that damage from the heat in the summer is what's causing failure in the winter. It's not because it's so cold outside and your car goes and it doesn't really start. We experience some very high temperatures in the summertime. So a fully charged battery at 80 degrees has 100% starting power. When the temperature drops down to 32, that starting power drops by a third. And if you go down to 0 degrees, you got only 40% of your starting power. So every drop in temperature, you're going to have a little bit less, but the damage from the summer is what's going to keep you at a closer to 100% starting power. That sounds like a lot of gibberish, but the deal is I want you to get a load test. Get a load test to determine where your battery is at. AAA does a load test. We have a car battery service that will come to your house. If your car is dead in the driveway, they'll come to your house. This is for AAA members. I'm not here to plug or push AAA, but just wanted to mention that. Your mechanic can do that as well. Find out what the load is. If you didn't do that in the fall, do it now. Go to the mechanic and we can have them check all of these things that we're looking at.
We actually had AAA come to our house not too long ago.
Good. Right, and they'll bring a battery to you.
Well, one of the recommendations, because it was my wife's car, which is not used that frequently, was to make sure you go out occasionally and start the car, even if you're not going to use it.
Yes. I'm going to add to that, Otto, because my aunt does not drive her car frequently, and it sits in the garage. She backs her car into the garage because she got stuck one time with the car facing in, and they couldn't get in to jump her car because the front end was in. So she has learned back the car into the garage so that if something happened, but the mechanic said you have to drive it, not just turn it on, but you need to drive it around. Drive it around for at least 20 minutes. Even if you have no place to go, drive around in your neighborhood, check everything out. Make sure that you get the car driven and it's not just sitting idle. Thanks, Otto, for bringing that up because that's a really good tip. Now, the average lifespan of any battery in this area is only about 5 years. Your battery has a little stamp on it that says, what year that it was installed or what year that it was made. Double check that. And again, the mechanic will look at it and he'll say, oh, you know what, you need a new one. And if they tell you need a new one because this one's 8 years old, they're not just trying to pull your leg. They're telling you need to get a new battery. All right. And again, I mentioned already that AAA has battery service, which is definitely, that's a great service to have. All right. The next area that we're looking at is your car's radiator. We want to make sure that we're having antifreeze in our car that matches what your car needs. So where do you find that information? Of course, in your owner's manual. And we want to make sure that in that antifreeze, some antifreeze formulas work best when you mix 50-50 with water. You can buy them pre-mixed. You can dilute them yourself. And if all that sounds like, I don't want to do any of that because I don't want to do the wrong thing. Now, who's going to take care of that? That's your mechanic. But you have to make sure that you have that antifreeze and coolant in there. It's different from what you have in the summer. The next one that we're going to talk about is our windshield washer fluid. And I can't stress this enough. My daughter came in from out of town and we said, sure, you can use this car. I told my husband, just double check, make sure that everything's in there. And sure enough, he ran out of windshield washer fluid. This time of year, there's so much stuff that gets kicked up off the road. There's dirt, there's sand, there's grit, all kinds of stuff. And just all that just makes it it's like you're looking through wax paper. And if all you have is where the windshield wipers go, because that's where your windshield washer fluid goes, that's not good either. But we have to be able to see out of the windshield. And again, having that fluid. Now, you want to make sure that you have a product that has a freezing point at least 20 degrees below zero. And it says it right on the container. All right. If you are viewing the PowerPoint that I have, I'm not here to promote any particular brand. I happen to like Rain-X just because it does a good job at wiping stuff away. But we just want to make sure that you constantly have that topped off. This, I'm going to tell you, you can do this yourself. It is the easiest thing to do. When you open your hood, there's a little thing there, a little reservoir, and it's got a little thing that looks like your windshield washer. You can't miss with it. You can't miss. Definitely make sure that you have that fluid in there.
Okay, good point. To take a break, we have to go to a quick commercial break, Karen. So we'll be right back with Karen Blackburn, who is the Public Affairs Specialist for AAA, and we're learning all about winter driving safety. We'll be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse, Kristina Lew, and of course, Dan Cox. We're talking to Karen Blackburn, who is a public affairs specialist with AAA Northeast. And we were just kind of working our way to what everybody is thinking, the windshield wiper question: up or down, socks or no socks? Karen, it's all you.
Yep, you got it. So we were just talking about, making sure that you have good washer fluid. And yes, the wiper blade, lots of questions on that. So the first thing that we need to know is that your blades can become hard and brittle in the cold weather. And they can tear if little ice particles are left on your windshield. And it always happens. When you turn those wipers on, there's that spot, and it's right in your vision that there's that one spot.
Why is that?
It always happens. It always happens. They do make winter blades that are made out of a different component. You can get them in any auto parts store. Wiper blades are not difficult to put on. And again, if you're not sure how to do it, we're going to ask that mechanic. And before we talk about up or down, no matter what we want to do, we want to make sure that you are going to clear that windshield with the brush, with a scraper, turn on the defroster before you start moving those wiper blades. I have seen people, and it's a pet peeve of mine, who you see them just use their wiper blades to clear their windshield of an inch or two of snow. Well, you know what? That's going to damage your blades. In that situation, I would put them up so that you can clearly scrape and get everything off before you start using them. And again, we have this eternal debate at AAA amongst our traffic safety people. Do we put them up when you're parking? Do you leave them down? Do you put socks on them? Do you not put socks on them? My advice is, and I always put my wiper blades up because it makes it easier when I have to scrape the windshield. They're already up and they're not frozen and adhered to the windshield. As far as putting a sock on it, during the break, Otto had asked, well, is the sock then going to get adhered to the windshield wiper? And I don't believe it will because it's on the inside. Unless you have a sock that is, going to get frozen on the inside. That's a good question. I have not ever used the sock method, but I do, just from a personal note, I do always put my blades up. I always tap them to make sure that those ice particles that might have formed on it, that the ice particles are off, so that, again, when I put them on to clear my windshield as I'm driving, that there's no ice particles left on that to get right in my way. But you have to be able to see where you're going. We don't want to depend on just the wiper blades. We've all seen people who are driving who just have the space cleared where the wipers are. You need to see out of the whole windshield. Clear the whole windshield and then use the blades. If you are stuck in a storm or you're driving and it's coming down hard, like the storm Rebecca was talking about, you may get snow or ice crusting around the outsides. Well, maybe you need to pull over, find a spot, and clear that as well so that you don't damage the blades. Once your blades are gone, you're stuck. You need those to be functioning. Otto, did that answer your question that you had asked during the break?
Yeah. You know what I just thought about? You can really get into a complicated thing about these socks because it probably comes down to what kind of material the socks are made out of.
Yeah.
Some stuff would stick more than other stuff.
Otto, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a windshield wiper cover invention that you could either get at, from Amazon or at any car supply store. That is the right material that you could put on during a suspected snowstorm. So that they would probably, that's my guess. And if not, you heard it here first. Otto, you and I are going to invent it.
You need a big sock too, if you think about it. All right.
Otto, you might even be able to put the sock on and put a plastic bag over it. And that way that would keep the fabric from getting wet. That would keep it from adhering.
Well, but I like people put a sock in it, but now you're saying put a sock on it. So
there you go. All right. Let me move on to the next area. We're going to talk about your engine oil. There are different kinds of engine oil that we want to follow the specs that are in your owner's manual, but there are different oils for different types of the weather. So, we want to, when you're getting your oil changed, again, you can ask the mechanic, please put in the winter oil. There's a W in the number that stands for winter. The thinner the oil, we're looking for the thinner oil in the cold temperatures so that it does not get goopy in your engine. This last one, I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure in my car is the serpentine belt. Now, I don't know if I could point out which one is the serpentine belt under my hood, but I know that if I'm looking under the hood and I'm replacing my washer fluid and I'm looking around and I see any belt or anything that looks like it's worn or it's got little cracks in it, it's got little divots in it, and it doesn't look smooth, I'm going to get that replaced. All right. If a belt breaks while you are driving, it will gum up your whole car and you may not be able to go anywhere. So they do, again, rubber becomes brittle in cold weather and it is more likely to break. So take a look. And again, that's kind of thing that you can ask your mechanic. Can you just check the belts for me? Just make sure that everything's in good working condition.
I'm just going to add a little editorial on that serpentine belt thing. I had a personal experience, and I will not mention the brand of the car, but the serpentine belt was a flaw, and it broke on my car 4 to 5 times. Ooh. And it is not a pleasant experience. I broke down in many bad places. Staten Island, the Cross Expressway, the
Ooh.
car just dies when your serpentine belt goes dead. So
Yeah.
it is worthy of paying attention and having somebody look at. It's an expensive proposition, compared to other things. But
And
it's
so inexpensive to change the belt.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But to break down on some highway somewhere, because your car just stops. I
Yeah.
mean, it just it dies.
Yep.
So it's not a good thing.
Karen, just to get off topic slightly, because this is community talk radio and we do this a lot, we get a
No
little bit
worries. Go
off
ahead.
topic. And when you started talking about the oil, it's a question that has always come to my mind over the years with different cars and different makes and different recommendations. Gas and octane. I mean, I have friends that tell me, I have to put a minimum of 91 in my car, which is a huge jump from 89. Yeah. Huge. I always have, because I follow those directions. I want to be compliant. But a lot of people tell me that it really doesn't affect the engine. But I'm always, and I'm not going to quote you, and I don't, but you are on the radio. So what's your understanding about that?
I'm going to be honest, and that is not an area of expertise of mine. I know that for all of the cars that I have, I use the cheapest one and have never had any issues. Again, what I would do is I would go back and ask the mechanic.
Right. Okay.
Because your mechanic is the one who's got to fix your car when there's something wrong with it. The mechanic would rather not have to have you come in because something is gummed up. Or I know one gas brand, years ago, like, to keep your engine clean or whatever. I don't know that there's any gas that's out there. What I can tell you is that we're going to talk about is that we want to make sure that we keep the gas tank at least half full.
Right.
Because
okay.
things do
Most
happen
important.
to the gas. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
About why you want to do that, and that will help your gas tank. So just to reiterate, those are the 7 cold sensitive spots in our car. And even if you are not comfortable to check any of those things, we want to check with the mechanic. Whoops, I went the wrong way. We want to check with the mechanic, preferably in the fall. But if you didn't do it in the fall, it's okay to ask now. It's still relatively nice outside. I'll knock on wood, but again, that Farmer's Almanac said we could get hit with some cold weather next week. But the key words that you want to use, I want to winterize my car. Can you check the belts? Can you check the oil? Can you check the windshield washer fluid? All of those things that we were looking at, have them check the tires. They normally check the tires anyway, but make sure that they're checking those areas. All right. There are some other preparations that we want to make sure. We're going to put things in your car. Now, some of these things should be in your car all the time. And there are a few items that we want to make sure that we have in the winter. So for the winter in particular, you got to have a brush or an ice scraper. Now, I can't tell how tall any of you are. I don't recall when I've met most of you that, I'm very small. I need a long ice scraper, or at least one that has a telescoping so that I can reach across the roof of my car and across the windshield. You got to make sure that you have a brush or a scraper. I want you to get a portable shovel. They sell them. I saw one in CVS the other day. A portable shovel. If your tires are buried underneath the snow, you have to be able to get that out. I'm gonna get a little Rubbermaid container with a little cap on it. Get some kitty litter, not clumping kitty litter. That doesn't work. Just regular kitty litter, so that if you get stuck, this is something that you can put after you've shoveled. You're going to put that there, and it'll give your car something grittier to grip that may help you get out of a spot where you might be stuck. This next item, super important: blanket, extra gloves, a hat, extra socks, and extra shoes. Here's what I know is going to happen. You're stuck somewhere, you open up your car door, you put your foot down, and you step right in a puddle, you step in a big thing of snow, and once your feet get wet, it's not good. I will mention that in Buffalo, when they just had that very, very bad snowstorm, there were a lot of people who passed away during that storm, whether they were in their house, but 29 people 29 people died because they were trapped in their vehicle or they got out of their car and they wandered looking for help and didn't find that help. All right. For the people who stayed in their car, perhaps if they had an extra blanket, the extra gloves, the extra things for extra warmth, maybe that would have helped them, in those situations. It might not have, it was very cold and, they may have been stuck in there for a long time. But here on Long Island, just, throw those things right in the car. If you take medications, put them in a little pill box, put an extra set in there. Little thing of water. Now, the water may freeze, but eventually it's going to thaw out. Maybe some non-perishable snacks. Again, here on Long Island, it's not likely that we're going to be stuck for days in our car. But again, if you're traveling, well, maybe you are going to get stuck. Have something in the car. And finally, we want to make sure that you have some kind of emergency roadside kit. Now, when you get these emergency roadside kits, and AAA sells some really great packs, I want you to look at what's in them before you buy it. Okay, an item, the one I'm showing on my screen says it's got 103 items in it. That could mean that there's 20 Band-Aids in there, that there's, items in there that are first aid items that maybe you're never going to use, but you definitely need to have jumper cables. You need to have some sort of reflective triangle or device so that, again, if an emergency vehicle is looking for you, they need to be able to see you. I have taken one, broad daylight, and I put it on the roof of my vehicle. And the vehicle that was coming to help me said, "Oh, I saw you from really far away." Like that, they thought that was great. Make sure there's some kind of rain poncho in there because, again, Murphy's Law says when something bad is going to happen, it's going to happen in the dark. It's going to happen when it's raining. It's going to happen when things are not good. So we want to make sure you do have those items. And maybe you have to supplement that kit a little bit. I have a few things floating around and I have them in a crate in my back, in my trunk. And it's like a good holiday gift. Holidays are over, but Valentine's Day is coming up. Doesn't that just say love? I love you enough to get you an emergency roadside kit.
Aaron, one thought, the Band-Aids. Frankly, this just came up this past Sunday when I was out with a group. People who are on blood thinners, there are Band-Aids that are special Band-Aids that have like a something in them that makes the bleeding stop.
A clotting agent, yeah.
Yeah, and that was one, but the other one was the one person had this gauze thing that you could wrap around.
Sure.
If somebody would be bleeding, you could wrap this around with the hope that it puts enough pressure on to keep bleeding from happening. So
exactly.
when you walk and you go into, and it's happened to me, I didn't have a bleeding problem, but step down into some ice, and the ice actually ripped a hole in my leg. And because it was so sharp, and I didn't know it was ice, I got out of the car and boom, where it's crusted on the top.
Yeah.
And if you have a problem and you're going to bleed because you have a blood thinner, if you don't have anything in your car, you could have a serious end result.
Yes.
So
wow, good.
People who have that issue, they have to think a little more about it.
And put heavy duty, something heavy duty.
And it might not be just for you, frankly. It might be somebody else.
Might be for your passenger, correct?
Right.
Or somebody else, right?
Right.
Good plan. All right. From here, we're going to go into some prep tips if you have to drive. So the first thing is we want to make sure that you plan enough time, that you have enough time to warm up your car, that you have enough time to clear all the snow off your roof. And again, we all see people who drive and they have inches of snow on their roof. And that can slide down either on your windshield or it can fly off and hit somebody behind you. So you have to be considerate of that. We want to clear the side mirrors. We want to clear the tailpipe because, again, if the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide can get back into your vehicle. Now, in New York State, it's not yet the law that you need to clear the roof. It's been in legislation for a bit now. It has not passed, but I'm hoping that that's coming. That's something that everybody should make sure that they're doing. And again, that's why we want that telescoping snow brush. Now, we want to keep the gas tank at least half full. What happens is when you get down and you're down to a quarter tank or less. And I hope nobody's ever driving around with that much, that little gas in your car. Condensation actually forms in the gas tank, and it does affect the quality of the gas. When the gas tank is half or more full, there's a less likely chance, significantly less chance that condensation will build up. So whatever kind of gas, whatever kind of octane that you're using, just make sure that you keep it full. Keep it full. Plus, you don't want to get stranded on a road and realize I ran out of gas. That's like the most easily preventable emergency procedure, warm-up tip that you can have. Keep the gas tank full. All right. I think we have enough time to start talking a little bit about driving on ice and snow.
You know what, Karen? Actually, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back to this very important topic. You're listening to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be back with Karen Blackburn talking about winter driving safety. We'll be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Otto Lohse, Kristina Lew, and Dan Cox. And we're talking to Karen Blackburn, who's the Public Affairs Specialist from AAA in the Northeast, winter driving safety, and we're learning a lot of stuff. And I know just before break, we were about to get into driving on ice and snow. Not the fun stuff.
Correct. Sometimes you get stuck. I know that, there have been times when I was at work and it started snowing and, or I was out somewhere and it started snowing and, maybe it was something that we weren't predicting or, sometimes you do have to go out, but everything in moderation, whether you're accelerating, whether you're stopping, whether you're driving, everything in moderation. We know that if you slam on the brakes in even good conditions, your whole body gets thrown forward. If you slam on the brakes, if you slam onto the accelerator and you go very fast, your whole body moves back. So this is not just upsetting your body, it's upsetting your vehicle. We don't want to upset the balance of the vehicle. So if everything can be driven as smoothly as possible, easy on the brake, easy on the accelerator, that's going to be less likely to upset the balance of a vehicle and may keep your vehicle driving more. So gentle pressure on the accelerator, because if your tires start spinning, they just dig deeper and deeper into the snow. So if you are stuck, what we can try rocking the vehicle back and forth between, forward and back again. You need to be aware of what's behind you and what's ahead of you. Again, if you need to get out, shovel a little bit under the tires, use that gritty substance like your kitty litter that will help your tire grip the road. And again, hopefully you remember to put those things in your car and hopefully your tires are properly inflated. That's all going to help. All right. We want to make sure that as you're driving that you have ample clearance from oncoming traffic. I have a picture on my screen that shows a fairly typical residential road where people are parked on both sides of the road. And if you are going forward, but you see there's a car ahead of you and you can see that car is not slowing down, or if you have an opportunity to pull to the side, let that car pass you so that you all have enough room to go back and forth. But once you try to squeeze both cars in between too narrow of a spot and you have slippery roads, that's a recipe for, maybe you're both going to get stuck. We also want to pay attention to the difference in your road surfaces. So if you're pulling out of your driveway, maybe your driveway is super clear because you did a great job shoveling it, but maybe your roadway has only been, the plow only came by once. There's going to be a difference in that traction. And then maybe if you're going from your side road onto a main road that's well paved, your back tires may spin a little bit. So you need to make sure that you have enough clearance from oncoming traffic. And again, I'll use that example. You're on the side road and you're turning onto the main road. The main road is clear. You just want to make sure that you are checking to your left if you're making the right-hand turn. You're checking and making sure that you have enough time in case your back tires spin a little bit. And if you can, stick to the main roads whenever possible. They're obviously going to be clearer than your local roads. I know when I drive home in a snowstorm or whatever, I'll take the one main road and I'll go a little further, knowing that it's going to be much more clear than having to go up the steep hill on the street that I live on. A little bit safer. All right, we want to increase our following distances. Leave a little more space between you and the car ahead of you. Leave a little more space. In good weather, we say leave 3 to 4 seconds. In snow and ice, leave a little bit more. If that car in front of you gets stuck, you do want to be able to try to get around them. Watch those cars ahead of you, because if they're fishtailing and spinning, you might expect that maybe the same thing is going to happen to your car. And maybe you can either get into another lane or anticipate that car might get stuck. If you're going downhill, I want you to reduce your speed. Don't slam on the brake. Again, everything in moderation, but reduce that speed so that if you're going downhill, and again, you fishtail, we don't want to fishtail down the hill. We want to control the speed to the best of your ability.
Karen, I just want to ask you a question about that, going downhill and brakes. So, when I was younger, we were told we have to pump the brakes. Is that something that we do, or now are we just slowly pushing down on the brakes?
We're recommending just slowly pushing down. Just, again, everything gentle as can be. We don't want your wheels to lock, but we do, again, you wouldn't be wrong if you pump the brakes. But again, anticipate ahead. What's at the bottom of the hill? Do you have enough room, that if your car is going to slide a little bit, is there another car at the bottom of the hill? Everything in moderation. The key is that we're not slamming on the brakes in any situation.
Right.
You know what you're describing, AAA, I know, is a big proponent of defensive driving.
Yes.
And avoiding the cluster. And, the people, unfortunately, who probably listen to this show are not the ones who are not driving defensively. They are not the ones who are tailgating. They are not the ones who drive like morons at a high speed on ice. They don't use their stop signals. They don't obey stop signs. So the only thing we can do is keep calm and don't let those kind of people annoy you. Like you mentioned, the clearance on streets. It's like a game on Long Island.
Yeah.
You go down a block with one lane, and there's some cars have no intention of stopping. They're going to be the first ones through. And I think the biggest thing that all of us have to do is just keep calm and know that this person is just not a good driver, and don't play the same game. And it's hard to do sometimes because people can, when people are tailgating you in bad weather, that's even worse, on an icy day or whatever. But anyhow, I'm pontificating.
And we can't control what that other driver is doing, but we can anticipate what they're doing and try to respond defensively. And you're absolutely right. We're probably preaching to the choir here.
But on the other hand,
but if somebody picks up at least one tip, we're careful on our exit and entrance ramps. We don't want to use cruise control in wet weather. Those are, I don't know why anybody would use cruise control in poor weather, but not even in the rain, we don't recommend it. Now, I'm going to tell you that, some people get overconfident because they have 4-wheel drive, they have front-wheel drive, they have all-wheel drive. And, some people say, well, what's the difference? And I'm going to say it doesn't matter what the difference is. What happens is that either all wheels are moving, front wheels are moving. Some are better for, different rural kind of roads as opposed to more paved roads. But the big thing is whatever you have in your car, I don't want you to be overconfident and say, well, I can drive in that because I have all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive or whatever it is that you have. You're still facing with You don't know necessarily what's under the snow. Is there black ice under there? No kind of drive or special tire is going to 100% protect you from any of those things. So it's really, how are you driving? That's important. We do, if you are in a skids we know are caused, maybe you're going too fast for the conditions. Maybe you did, do a hard acceleration or hard braking, quick jerky movements. Those are the things that are going to cause those skids. So again, we want to avoid that hard braking situation, and we want to look and steer in the direction that you want to go. And that's the most important thing we want to remember. You're going to have to maneuver that steering wheel and look and steer in the direction that you want to go. They always tell us that steering is preferred to braking if you're going more than 25 miles an hour. Steering is preferred to braking. So we want to try to steer out of that skid rather than slamming on the brakes, because that's the normal, oh my gosh, that's what I have to do, slam on the brakes. We want to try again. If you're going at a moderate speed, we should be able to recover from that skid by steering. All right, here comes the big thing. Leave the car or stay. And I'm going to tell you it's different in every circumstance. It's going to be, the things that you have to take into consideration. Are you prepared for harsh weather if you're thinking about leaving your car? Are you near someplace safe that you can get to so that you're not going to be wandering out in the snow? So if you decide to stay with your car, again, I mentioned before that you have to clear the exhaust pipe. Clear it with the shovel that you packed. Hopefully you have that. You want to keep the warmth in the car. So run the car till it's warm and then shut it back off. That's going to help you save fuel. If it looks like you might be stuck for a while, you don't want to run out of gas. So run it till it's warm, shut it off, keep your seatbelt on, which sounds dumb, but if your car gets hit by another car and you're not belted in, you may get thrown in your car. So keep your seatbelt on. And we want to try avoid using your phone because you're going to use that battery up. And I don't want either your car battery. I don't want your phone battery. I don't want that. And again, I would think that phone battery, you've like, but that's what else am I supposed to do? Well, I didn't mention, maybe you pack a book in your emergency kit. Just kidding on that. But try to avoid using it. Try to avoid using the battery. So we want to go back and say, all right, did I pack the blanket? Did you pack the extra socks, extra gloves? Is there somebody else in the car that you can share the warmth with? They always joke on TV sitcoms about people who, okay, we all got under the blanket together, but you know what? Two people can create more heat. You both get under the blanket, whatever we can to stay warm. All right. Did you pack a thing of water? I still want you to stay hydrated, because even in the cold weather, you can get dehydrated, which again can cause other health issues. All right. If you're going to leave the car, we want to be aware, where did you leave it? Where did you leave it? What road were you on? Is it going to interfere with the plows? If you leave it right smack in the middle of the road, well, you know what? It's going to get plowed in, and the plows are going to have a hard time getting around it. If you can get it to the side of the road, to a shoulder, that's a better bet. You're going to get plowed in. But again, that's one of the things that you have to consider if you're going to leave the car. If you do, leave a note in the car that says what time, what day was it, where were you headed? So that if somebody looks in that car and says, oh, there's nobody in here, well, maybe if you're missing, maybe they're going to say, well, now they have a little indication of where you are. And again, I just want you to be prepared to face the harsh weather. If you don't have an appropriate coat or hat or gloves or shoes, you may be better off to stay with the car. Now, in summary, I want you to make sure, stay home if you can. Prepare the car. Listen to the weather forecasts. News 12 is constantly out there, and I always feel bad for those people in like Thundercat 12 who are stuck on that road duty, and they're out there, or the people who are standing there in the freezing cold. They're telling you that the storm is coming. Stay home. Do you really need to go out to the store to say, oh, I need more toilet paper? No, you probably have enough in your house to make it through another day. You probably have a can of soup that you can heat up. You probably have something in your house that you're going to have some food for a day or two. Stay home if you can. I want you to also consider the emergency response system, the fire trucks, the ambulances, who might have to come and help you if you're stuck. Well, you know what? They don't want to be on the road any more than, they don't want to get stuck either. If you rely on Uber Eats for drivers, those are people who, they're driving on the same road. Your taxi drivers, they're all driving on those same roads. Follow the bans. If they tell you to stay off the road, stay off the road. Again, if you have to, I want you to make sure that your car is prepared for an emergency now, that you're going to drive in moderation. We're going to keep your vision clear by keeping the windshields, the roof clear. There are things that you can do if you get stuck, but if you don't have to drive, then stay home.
Karen, it's today you get so much headway ahead of time, a week, 10 days sometimes. We know if it's coming from the west and it's only going to get worse. Plan. I would just assume that you're going to be snowed in. So do what you need to do right away. As soon as you hear inclement weather coming, as long as it's not that same day, do what you have to do. Just prepare for it, and you don't have to worry. Never, don't wait it out, because today the forecasts are so accurate. It's almost it's unbelievable, and you can watch it along the way. So if it's coming, they're telling you it's coming, believe it. And a lot of times it could be worse. No one anticipated what happened in Buffalo, though they did. But the pockets too, which were really amazing. Like, there were certain areas of Buffalo that got it really bad, and other areas that didn't. So just follow the warnings, and take care of yourself. Don't go out. It's coming, right?
Right. And again, if you do have to go, maybe you are an emergency worker and you have to get to your job. Plan ahead, try to go early, pack a gym bag of clothes. And if you get stuck, stay in the office or whatever. One of the things we learned from the pandemic is many of us, not everybody, but many people can work safely from home and, use a Zoom call or work remotely if that's, if that's an option. Not everybody can do that, but if you can, again, do your best to stay home and plan ahead. Again, if you have a gym bag in the car that has an extra change of clothes, that if you got stuck, my office is about 45 minutes from where I work. There's a hotel right down the road. There've been a few times I put a bag in the car in case I need to go stay at that hotel. Now I work remotely if I need to, so it's not really even a concern. But there's lots of things that we can do so we could stay safe. The last thing we want to do is get stuck on the road somewhere or have that white knuckle drive that, Rebecca, you were talking about. I've had a few of those too. The white knuckle, you grasping onto that steering wheel. If you don't have to do it, then don't.
Karen, you just made me think about something. Like you said, you had to stay at a hotel, whatever. People who may need medications that are critical probably ought to think about having a couple of day worth of medications in their car as well, so that if they do get stuck and they have a serious health issue of some kind, that they do have the medication with the frozen water.
Right. If you don't keep it in your purse, keep it in your
however you keep
kit.
it, have it, so it's accessible.
Project Independence, we sure did learn a lot during Sandy, because no one was prepared for Sandy. And, we didn't know about people, you just can't project being out. What does out of power for 2 weeks mean for people who are on oxygen, or on life sustaining therapy at home, whatever it is. So, we definitely did. When the next storms came, we had lists of, our members who we know might need a little additional help, just to make them aware what's happening, to prepare, make sure you've got your batteries going. We never want to be in that scenario again. It's so much about preparing for, I don't want to say the worst, but, if you're prepared for the worst, the only thing that could happen is it's not that bad and you're prepared. So, I can't emphasize that enough. Just, stay off the road. It's coming. don't put yourself in jeopardy. And you certainly, like Otto, you bring up such good points. I mean, you don't want to be without your medication, that kind of a thing. But we actually have to go to break. And I just want to thank you so much, Karen. It's always great to have you on, such important information. I'm sure you'll be back. And I know you'll be back to our advisories also.
Happy to be there.
Thank you again.